Good up.
This is Channel 253.
On this episode of the Grit and Grain podcast.
The comment section was just so dense with people shitting on Goop and Gwyneth Paltrow going like, oh man, I'm so happy to know that my cancer-causing vodka is fucking organic. Like, I literally don't give a shit about that. And it was 10,000 comments, and I spent, I don't know, like 9 days scrolling through all of them. It was awesome.
Channel 253 is member supported. I'm producer Doug Mackey, and I hope you will show your support by going to channel253.com/membership and join. Thank you.
Welcome to the Grit and Grain podcast, where we explore and celebrate the craft beer industry, community, and history in Tacoma, Washington, and surrounding Pacific Northwest areas. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let's get to it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Grit and Grain podcast, coming to you guys from Peaks and Pints in Tacoma, Washington. Woo! You didn't hear Ron's woos right there, because Ron is actually out sick today, sadly. I think this is the longest stint he's had with any kind of illness since I have known him. Nearly 10 years, I think.
Yeah, it's been...
Yeah, same.
Yeah, he doesn't get sick typically, so...
But he's still texting and everything. He's not just straight up bedridden or whatever, so hopefully he'll be back. Hopefully he'll be back for the next... Not the next one, but the one after that. But Bethany's hanging out. How's it going, Bethany?
Hi, great. How are you guys?
Good.
Yay.
Phaedra, Doug, how are you guys today?
Great.
Groovy.
It's a long time no see.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been ages.
It's
I know.
been a beer day.
Yeah, so we were, if you're just listening, we were up at Logan today brewing our Tacoma Beer Week collab beer, which I guess I might as well just talk about it on this one. I'm trying to think of like when this comes out. Okay, so here's the deal.
Friday.
Yeah, this comes out Friday, and I'm like, when does the calendar go live? So, which happens Saturday. Anyway, if you're listening to this on Friday, you get like a sneak peek. So Tacoma Beer Week is doing multiple collabs, and we get to be one of them. And it's going to be awesome. So if you guys are listening to this and you're from around here and you know Lander Coffee makes some of the best coffee, I would say, like in the South Sound, kind of low key. Like I feel like, you know, I mean, we have Valhalla, we have Bluebeard, we have like great coffee makers around Tacoma. But Dusty at Lander, who also owns State Street and just opened up his new spot, Wiley, has been in the beer business for a while, but coffee is really his gig, and that's like what he's always really wanted to do. And he does really unique, really good stuff, and has this Guatemalan roast, which it's Nueva Montana is the name of the word. That's the one? Okay. So yeah, Nueva Montana. If you guys see it on his shelves, you should grab it. He actually buys the entire crop of this particular bean. And so it's the only place in the country you can buy this fucking coffee. It is very distinct, really rich, like red berry, like ripe strawberry type flavors. Kind of unusual when you have like Ethiopian, you might have like blueberries. If you have Brazilian, you might have a lot of citrus. If you have Mexican, you might have a lot of vanilla. So Guatemalan roasts are really unique in that they have these like big, vibrant kind of red berry flavors, and his is great. So we were like, we want to make a beer inspired by that coffee. So we got together with him, got together with Logan Brewing, who you guys have heard us gush about before as having won a few awards for their CDA, or their Black IPA, which I've talked about being very similar to like a single origin cold brew kind of coffee. So took Dusty's Nueva Montana, did like a little sensory analysis on it, and then designed a beer based on that hopefully will taste exactly like it when it's finished. But there's actually no coffee in the beer. It's just heavily inspired by it.
Yeah, using the hops and stuff to recreate that coffee flavor.
Yep,
It's going to be cool.
So we used Belma. We used French Barber Rouge, very famous for like its big red currant and like red raspberry sort of flavors. And then we used, what else? HBC 680?
It's a little Centennial.
Yeah, a little bitter with a little bit of Centennial. We went like
Does
kind
the
of
malt
lights.
help with that too? I mean...
So like the thing that I like about Lander's Black IPA, or not Lander's, but Logan's Black IPA, is that they don't go super heavy on the roast. It's actually like slightly toned down, so you don't lose a lot of like the really like vibrant citrusy character in like this big, just straight up bitter black patent kind of flavor. A lot of black IPAs kind of do that. I feel like they just go straight for like dark roast, and then it's just bitter hoppy character.
Right.
whereas theirs is like really balanced. And so I was like, if you guys can do that, but then let's base it on this really unique coffee that you can literally only buy at a coffee shop in Tacoma, that would be awesome. So we talked to Michael up at Logan, and he loved it. And yeah, he let me fuck around with the recipe a little bit, and I think it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited to try it.
Me too. But yes, the roast flavor is going to come from the malts. Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be in the CBA.
Yeah. But it won't be too roasty. It'll
Got
be,
it.
Yeah, balanced out.
Got it.
That's gonna be awesome. That's what we were doing this morning. It was awesome. All the Logan guys are very nice. Also, Aussie meat pies are.
Australian meat pie shout out.
Holy shit, that was so good.
Yeah, it was really good.
And also all the beers we sampled at Logan, 10 out of 10. Like
They were
so
really
good.
Yeah.
I know they're kind of fresh off of like multiple wins in the last year or so for like their IPA for one thing. Just so good. But I was kind of walking their wall, and it's just like nonstop sip silvers and golds and Washington Beer Awards, and now Best of Craft Beer, and then American Beer Cup, like just
And then the GABF for their blonde.
which is wild.
Silver, I think it was.
Yep. So yeah, those guys are killing it. Super happy to be able to do a collab with them. They're actually going to be down here. If you guys are hanging around, they're going to be down here for a live episode the Wednesday of Tacoma Beer Week. So you guys should come and hang out. It's going to be awesome. Those guys are super nice. And we're going to have coffee and beer.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
Speaking of coffee and beer, what beers are you guys drinking right now?
Trapdoor Extra Pale.
Nice.
Not coffee.
Not coffee.
And a Fruit Loop.
I feel like it's maybe like a staple for you now to switch it up with a Fruit Loop.
Yeah. Well, the first one tends to go down a little easy, so it's good to like balance it out a little. Got something else to drink. Fader,
Totally.
what do you
This
have?
is the Italian Pilsner, and I'm almost positive it was Double Mountain. I'm kind of just.
Yes.
Is it? Thank
6
you.
was
Yeah,
the
number
one.
6. Yeah, Double Mountain, and it's
I almost
and
got
it's
that too.
Italian Pilsner. Not
Are you
just
sure
city.
about that?
I am, because Grazie was in the name. I don't remember.
That's all it takes.
Yes.
And also the description said Italian Pilsner. So
What do you have now?
It is.
This is Mirage's Keller beer that they have on.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
saw
it's
that.
absolutely
Want
delicious.
some of that too.
Like super full bodied, like really light, so good.
So Fader and I were talking about extra pale ales at Logan Brewing. What is your take on what the beer is supposed to be? Because it's not like
What
that. I think
is-
it's changed. I feel like it used to be more towards the IPA side, and now I
Yeah.
feel like it's like a cleaner pale ale.
Yeah, that's
almost.
kind of how I feel.
But I
about
don't
it.
know. That's just
But like a pale ale that has like predominantly more hop character than a typical American pale is like what I get out of it, and usually like a little bit higher on the ABV scale.
like a cleaner malt bill. I don't know.
Kind of
It's
like
a
more
weird
pale
category.
malt bill usually. That's like the examples I've seen. Grains of Wrath is like really well known for entering in some of their IPAs in as extra pale and then taking gold in that category, even though the beer says IPA on
It's
it.
just an IPA. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about the names for different styles of beers and how you fudge it here or fudge it there
Sure.
or whatever.
IPO or
yeah,
Imperial
and
Pilsner.
then this, or a West Coast
Pills.
Pale Ale or a West Coast Pills or a
Sure.
and then what does extra pale ale mean? What's
Trapdoor, you
what's
nailed
the
it.
extra part.
I think
I think it's really good to drink. So
at the end of the day, man, that's fine. This is like why I love talking to the guys from here today, because they're very much, and actually I'll say that Dempster talked about this too when he was on. I'm drinking one of his beers right now, but they're much less sort of committed to like whatever the name of the beer is or whatever the style is supposed to be. They kind of just let it be a fluid thing, and then if it feels like it's leaning into this, okay, cool, I'm going to change my initial plan and then help it lean into this or reinforce these flavors or these aromas that I'm getting. Which I love that kind of methodology of brewing beer. And if whatever comes out, if it's what you intended and you call it an extra pale and it's
Yeah.
delicious, then that's fucking great.
yeah.
Well, and then what Chris was saying today was that sometimes it's also what folks identify with what they want to buy based on the name. So if you call it a session, blah, 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 they might not. But if you call it a West Coast something or other, or, you can fiddle with how you market it or how you, label it.
At the end of the day, it's like it's a good point. And at the end of the day, like most of the decisions for that sort of stuff just comes down to how you convince somebody to buy it. Like, I can't call it this, even though it is this.
Exactly.
My chances of selling it
Right.
if I call it this go down
Right.
by 13% or whatever.
Yeah.
Brewers can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Speaking of what breweries can or can't afford, if you guys listened last time, we did kind of like a state of the industry sort of episode. There's been all kinds of like crazy articles going around about how craft beer is down and not as popular. People are drinking less, and like while some of that is true, we were hoping to like quell some of that sort of like negative hype. With some statistics, a lot of breweries closed, but a lot of breweries opened, and then just like hopefully some solid rebuttals on some of the stuff that people are saying. One of the ones that we brought up, like on top of brew closures and all that, was like people opening additional locations. And actually sounds like there's a bill on the table right now to help make that a little bit easier. Kevin Waters, who used to be one of the owners of Backwoods, who is now a very decorated statesman, is actually testifying on behalf of small breweries to make it easier for them to open second locations. Which is really cool.
What's the struggle now with that?
So I'll have to read the whole bill, but I mean, like we've heard people talk all the time about how difficult it is to open a business in general. There's all kinds of additional licensing. Breweries have to abide by the 3-tier system, except for some certain loopholes where you can sell beer to yourself. So there's all kinds of red tape up. And if you already have an established business, transitioning your license into something totally different, like a remote tap room, could be complicated. So I think there's all kinds of red tape up. This bill is designed to address some of those things really specifically, and like will affect a lot of breweries' abilities to open up secondary locations, and then which is like that helps them capture more margin. So that'll be really big. But yeah, things like that are happening, and like we were talking to some breweries, like just in the last few weeks, who are opening up new locations. Stemma's thing we talked about, so that's awesome, and you guys will probably hear about some, in the next few weeks too, because we got cool secret info. But one of the things we didn't actually get a chance to talk about was the Surgeon General thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that.
And this was like, this was an interesting one.
A little recap of what it says.
Yeah. So the whole thing was that they want to put. So the Surgeon General has like, it's the smoking warning on the side of cigarettes. It's the don't drink while you're pregnant Surgeon General warning. There are mandatories to be printed on labels, but the Surgeon General is trying to make it mandatory to put like the cancer-causing effects of alcohol being printed on labels. And as you can imagine, that's something that will affect a lot of people's their alcohol buying decisions. And that, like, on its face sounds like a very positive thing. Like, yeah, sure, if something causes cancer, then it totally you shouldn't buy it. That's awful. But there's like a lot of nuance to this. Or you should moderate. Yeah, that's the thing. There's some nuance to this. You should moderate it. I also don't think anybody in the alcohol industry has been trying to hide the fact that we all push a carcinogen.
It's probably not going to matter anyway,
thing,
because the Surgeon General has probably been fired by now.
That's also probably true. We'll see.
That's an entirely different conversation,
All
Doug.
right.
Yeah.
I'll stop.
RFK Jr.'s up there. Everyone, remove all the seed oils from your beer.
As you were saying.
So yeah, that was the recap. And I don't know, man. You guys have both tended bar before. Has anybody ever talked to you about that from the consumer side? Yeah, right?
No.
It's not like a big.
I was going to say, quite honestly, I have never, at least in my memory, really, I don't know, I guess internalized or really thought about any cancer-causing aspects to alcohol.
Sure.
I feel like there are a whole load of things that alcohol does to your body and your life and your whatever. I mean,
Sure.
you know what I mean? And so
That's what I was gonna say.
that's kind of like I said, first of all, I never really associated it.
So
And
of
if I
all
missed,
the dangers.
if I missed that was a thing, now I know.
Yeah.
Right? But there's
It's a
just
thing.
a whole other universe
the
of
list.
things
Yeah.
that, if you,
It's
can't
very-
deal with alcohol very well,
It's addictive.
it can be a problem.
It is an addictive
Yeah.
substance,
Totally.
and
It can be a
that's not
problem.
on the warning label. So I think it's interesting that it's oh, cancer, sure, that too. But like, there's also
What doesn't cause
a
cancer
lot of other
anymore?
stuff that
This is like where I'm at on it. Is like of all the dangers that alcohol kind of poses to people, I feel like cancer is like a relatively low on the scale.
It's
Like,
an everyday causing cancer.
also, yeah.
That's just it. Everything causes cancer.
We live in Tacoma. We're all fucking drinking water that comes
I know, we
from
got
the Asarco
microplastics
soil.
all
Like,
Well, and we grew up with,
I grew up in the
soil.
Superfund, so
Yeah,
Something in the
exactly.
soil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarco rained down on us for decades.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
separate sub story, but like, so yeah, if you're not from here, the Asarco smelter, which was demolished, like I don't know, 30 years ago now, just absolutely poisoning
been
this
30
entire
years?
city. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was just talking to somebody whose parents grew up here, and like back in like the 50s, like Asarco would have representatives who would go out, door knock, and then compensate people for the plants that died because their soil was so contaminated by the Asarco plant.
Wow.
Yeah, fucking
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, they've done remediation of soils.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, yeah, if you grew up here, you know, you've seen like, you know, the city just digging up people's yards.
Yeah.
They're trying to get rid of all the toxic soil.
When I was a kid, my father was obsessed with rock-free soil. So during the summer, while the thing was belching out, and
Yeah.
for those of you who out there who may have remembered this, it coated your throat. It was the weirdest freaking feeling.
Oh my gosh.
So there was always this feeling. It was orange. It was an orange-colored smoke. But my dad had me sifting rocks out. So I was creating airborne soil when I was a child. Every summer.
Jesus Christ.
So I'm as good as dead.
So yeah,
really.
all of us sitting here
Yeah.
are like
I'm
beer
watching.
causing cancer. You fucking wusses. Like,
The
you're
walking
pathetic.
Glow in the dark. It's okay.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Well,
I've had a sinus infection since '85.
yikes. Okay, but so then you were talking, Matt, about the like there's also been studies about loneliness and how much that can affect your literal physical health
Totally.
as well, and that drinking can be such a social activity that it's like kind of weighing your pros and cons
Totally.
there.
So this was actually, and I did not think about this and was following the Surgeon General thing for a week or two. And this was actually a rebuttal posted by Tacoma Business. So Cider and Cedar, fantastic little cider tap room near downtown. The loveliest goddamn people. One of my favorite spots to have a drink in Tacoma. So they posted up, you know, like obviously, you know, alcohol has many dangers, right? But the same Surgeon General that is talking about putting a cancer warning on alcohol also published an 80-page paper just a few years ago about the loneliness epidemic in America and how the statistical comparisons of the negative effects of loneliness in America are roughly equal to the negative effects on public health for people who smoke like 15 cigarettes a day, basically. Like, it's just as bad for the statistics of our nation's health.
And that a lot of that has to do with behaviors too. If you sit home alone, you're going to eat more shitty food.
Totally.
I mean, there's a whole.
Totally.
It's not just I feel bad, I'm going to die. you know?
Right. But like the lack of social interaction,
Yeah.
I mean, but it leads to all that, right? And
It's all
that's
part
like the
of it,
thing.
yeah.
But like, you know, nobody. That's the type of danger that people don't talk about as much because there's not really like a physical thing to
could you put a
blame.
label on?
if
Yeah.
you-
Yeah, what are you gonna put a label on?
Well, I was going to
Being
say,
lonely.
if you live
Yeah.
home alone, nobody's going to knock on your door and label you.
Like
Exactly.
Netflix isn't going to put a fucking loneliness warning from the Surgeon General.
Are you watching this alone?
Yeah.
You never know. Like,
How
are you
long
still
have you been
watching?
alone?
How long have you been alone in this room?
Dial this number if you need help. Like, that's
Yeah.
never gonna happen.
Right.
But it was such a good point because, like, and Cider and Cedar and Peaks and Pints, and there's a lot of places that you can think of where, like, I'm not a particularly social person. I like doing this, and I like you guys, but like,
But nobody else.
it's really it, yeah. Nobody else. But like, I am so much more likely to like mix it up with randoms, to stand up and talk to people, to move around, like between tables, to like joke around with random people when I'm like out having a beer. And that's like such a good point because like I can think of a lot of times where, and I can pull up names in my phone of people who I really count on today that I probably wouldn't have met if it wasn't for
For sure.
for beer.
Yeah.
Legit. I've talked about this before. I fucking Ginny's.
That girl.
Yeah. Our next guest. One of those fucking people. I have a text group in my phone that's called Chosen Family, and it's like people that I
nice.
The first time we hung out was actually at a drunk herstory.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Which wouldn't exist without
Right.
beer, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have like these really like crazy core memories and these really strong relationships in my life that I definitely have beer to thank for. I might not have met these people or connected with these people in any way. And I thought that was such a clever rebuttal. The exact same organization is printing this label, literally just said, if you can find ways to stop being as lonely and feel a little bit better, be a little bit more social, you should absolutely pursue those. It is better for your actual physical health. Beer is, you can make an argument for sure that beer, cider, most alcohol is a pretty good way to like be social.
And build community and stuff and have that community. And I'm sure it's not just beer. You know, if we were in the wine world, it would be the same thing. If we were in the spirits world, it would be the same thing. Where you start to know all the people from going to the events and drinking together.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's like I don't know, that's like a nice thing too. There's like rarely, I mean, I'm actually like involved in like a couple of like, you know, tight-knit like hobby communities that like when we see each other, it's like super cool. Like, oh man, I haven't seen you since the last, you know, tournament or event or whatever that we did. But like beer is cool because like those things just happen way more often. If you're around for long enough, you're almost always going to see somebody you recognize. You'll be invited to their table, and then like I don't know, you build all kinds of relationships doing that. That's I don't know. It's my favorite thing. That's like why we do Tacoma Beer Week. It's like you know,
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys both have core memories of like having a beer with people that ended up just being like a very important moment in your life, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Like
I mean, it's just it happens so often, quite honestly.
Yeah, which
Right.
story? Well, I moved here from Seattle almost 12 years ago, thinking I would just come down here for a job and then move right back to Seattle. You know, all my friends were just like, ew, why are you moving to Tacoma? And I was like,
we do have that vibe.
And you're
Yeah.
like, that's okay. You stay away. We're
Yeah.
fine.
well, I
We are
said,
fine.
I'll be back.
Totally.
Don't worry. I'm going to be back. Everyone calm down. And obviously I'm still here. And it was
And-
because
'cause
the
it's so
beer
awesome.
scene was so like open arms, welcoming. You know, I was brewing at the Ram and everyone was just like, oh, Ron came down and like interviewed me and was like, hey, you're new in town. Like, and I met Ginny pretty early on. Like, just the whole Tacoma beer scene was so inviting. I can't think of a specific core memory. Like,
But you know they're there.
But yeah,
but your
it's
whole
just-
circle exists almost
Yeah.
because of this.
yeah,
A lot of it, yeah.
And it was so welcoming down here. So
Yeah.
I think
thanks,
some early
Tacoma.
on bottle shares,
Oh yeah,
bottle shares, they don't seem to happen, at least for me, as much as they used to. And I don't know if that's.
We're not talking about the ones where Donna would talk shit to sales reps either.
I didn't
That's
go.
a-
I didn't.
That's a whole other thing.
That was way before my time, so
Alley
I
ones.
didn't do those.
Yeah.
No, but at someone's
Right.
house, and
That's what made people
everyone
move away.
brings out their special bottle or whatever, and trying different things, and that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of early on in my introduction into just craft beer anyway.
Yep.
But then also getting to try some really special stuff
Right.
pretty early on, and just meeting people, and like it was Scott Travis and that group, and
Totally.
and stuff. So that's been really, really great. But I mean, almost every day when you work behind the bar, I'm not necessarily drinking with the people, but you meet people and you have these conversations, and it's around, beer.
Totally.
And maybe I'm educating somebody, or maybe they're educating me, or sharing, talking about a brewery from, a part of the country or part of the world that I've never heard of before, or something like that. And so it's just, it's just nonstop for me, I think. It's just,
Right.
yeah, I love it.
Do you guys ever? This is kind of a sub thing, but like we mentioned a minute ago that like the beer industry and in general the alcohol industry has never tried to like hide the fact that this is a cancer causing thing. It certainly is, like everything else. It's Gwyneth Paltrow that does Goop, right?
Yes.
That's her. Okay.
Oh my.
And that's all I
Okay,
know.
So here's
And that's
this
all
is-
I know.
this is
Don't
one of
ask
my
me anything
favorite-
else.
This is like one of my favorite things that's ever happened on the internet. So there, I know. There's a payoff here, Doug. I promise.
Okay.
Okay.
Never get that.
Doug and I were just talking about like
not a commercial.
I don't
I
know
think
anything
Goop
about the
is
company,
is
but-
like a I don't know, man. I hate to shit on it, but like really seems like it.
Shit away.
Yeah. Really seems like it victimizes people that don't have a lot. I don't know. Anyway.
Anyway.
So they did a collaboration, I want to say with Smirnoff, like maybe 8 years ago. It was kind of a while ago, kind of when she first started this, but they did like a vodka thing with Smirnoff, and it was like a Goop collab, and then Smirnoff had all organic ingredients, and like they did like a whole like YouTube commercial thing about it being like better for you, and the amount
Better than all the other vodkas?
like yeah as in like this one's organic.
Was it like an
and this
enema or
one's-
anything? Was it?
I know. You got to boof it that way. You save money on your liquor.
Yeah.
The comment section was just so dense with people shitting on Goop and Gwyneth Paltrow, going like, "Oh man, I'm so happy to know that my cancer-causing vodka is fucking organic." Like, I literally don't give a shit about that. And it was 10,000 comments, and I spent, I don't know, like 9 days scrolling through all of them. It was awesome.
Correct.
But that's
I mean, that's
like we all get it, man. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, if you can consume responsibly, but like we all know what we're here for, and like again, there's benefits too.
Yeah, I
But
think.
Anyway.
one of the other
Absolutely.
memories that came up for me was the BJCP prep class that
Tristan
Trevor and Casey
Trevor
did.
did. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
That was called Tracy. Trevor and Casey.
Yeah. Just saving time.
Yeah, that works. Did because I took that 2 years just because it was so fun, and I met so many people and
Yeah.
talk about like building great community and
Totally.
everything.
Being
Yeah.
around people who just give a shit about the weird thing that you give a shit about
Yeah.
is like that's a super positive thing. And like, the craft beer is one of the biggest industries like in the country. It's huge. It's billions and billions. So there's tons of people who really do give a shit about it. But you do kind of feel like like a weird sort of outsider from everybody else, like it's easy to think like, man, if you guys only came in and like saw this, like you would totally stick around because it's so cool. So it feels like a subset of like social community stuff. But when you meet people who dig it the way you do, that's like really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about it a little bit when we were talking about the breweries and kids and having it be a gathering place for families or for people or
Totally.
whatever, and that's part of it. And you don't even have to necessarily be drinking alcohol when you're there. I mean, that's obviously what the proprietors want you to
That's the
do.
main, yeah.
But they're starting to offer other things, like NA and and then if it's a tap room, they might start pouring wine and they have cider and they have different things. So
That's true.
yeah, bring folks together.
I don't know. I thought it was such a good rebuttal. Like if I didn't have enough reasons to love cider and cedar, that was another one. So if you haven't yet, go check that business out and tell them they're awesome.
Cool.
We're going to take a super quick break and crack this big fancy bottle that Phaedra brought because Jesus Christ.
Yes, please.
And then we'll be right back. So stick around.
Right on. Cool.
This is Channel 253 co-founder Eric Hanberg thinking back to 2017 and the start of the first Trump administration, adult civics happy hour, Citizen Tacoma. All of these things came in many ways to a response to what was happening at the national level. We wanted to focus local, and we are still here for another Trump administration.
It's happening again.
It is happening again, but we're still here. We appreciate that you are still here, listening, engaging with the issues that you care about in your local community.
We renew our interest in our goal and our mission, and we hope that you will renew your membership as we move forward. And if you're not a member yet, please go to channel253.com/membership and join for $4 a month or $40 a year.
We truly appreciate the support of all of you who have given, and we hope to welcome more of you in the new year that can help keep independent media alive that is focused on Tacoma and our community. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for hanging out during the break. As always, a shout out to Doug, our wonderful producer, who makes us sound awesome
Yay, Doug.
and who does a great job at pouring hops into beer.
That was fun.
It was fun.
The second time around, as soon as I turned
You're an
around.
expert now, man. Doug's brewed 2 beers with us now. Yeah, we'll have another one for anniversary time. And then shout out to Chris, who's getting us on YouTube. If
Right
you guys
on,
have
Chris.
not yet, please do go check us out on YouTube.
Hi, YouTube.
Follow along. Pretend you're drinking right here with
No,
us.
I'm waving at the camera. I'm waving at all our fans.
All of them.
Yeah.
All 19. I'm kidding. There's more than 19. There's totally more than 19.
Got to be at least 2 dozen.
And then you guys heard it on the break, but please do go check out Channel 253. Fantastic network of local podcasts. How's the food podcast going?
We're about to drop the first one. It's coming out. We got the website all set up. Yeah. And we have to do a collab at some point.
Absolutely.
It
Are you
must
kidding?
happen.
Yeah. I'm actually teaching a food and beer pairing class at the Browns Point Homebrew Club tomorrow. So I'm like super excited. I love doing that kind of stuff. When we do our collab, we'll have to put some food and beer together.
Can you tell us what you're doing, pairing, or what the?
It's just overview of like the general concepts.
Oh, okay, got it.
Which we talked about for our last Tacoma Beer Week episodes with the fantastic Chris A.
Yep.
And then if you guys are going to check out cool websites where you give people money, we have a Patreon now. You're welcome to get more involved with Grit and Grain stuff. And you get a cool T-shirt.
Right on.
Actually, you get 2 of them
Wow.
if you buy us a growler.
The extra special level.
Yeah, it's extra special.
Okay, got it.
We have a new beer in front of us.
We do.
What is this, Phaedra?
This is 18-pound Imperial Porter from Georgetown. I went up, I don't know, a week or so ago and hung out.
And they had
Sometimes I
22s on for sale? Mm-hmm. Damn.
Sometimes I just like to hang out up there and
Just-
hang out in Georgetown. I
Go
like it up
bug
there.
Bedwards.
And then, well, no, I didn't. No,
No?
just the tap room crew, basically. But anyway, I like to go up there, say hi, hang out, and then I go and hang out in actual Georgetown and walk around and go in
sure.
shops and stuff like that and get lunch or whatever.
It's very good.
It's
This is delicious.
But it's aged in añejo tequila barrels.
Anejo.
Añejo. He put it. There's a tilde on it.
What?
It's very
Añejo.
subtle, the tequila aspect. Is
It's
very
delicious. I just
Anyway.
did a tequila tasting not too long ago, and
Tequila.
yeah, I like have never done one. I drink a lot of tequila, but like I drink the tequila that I like, so I don't like explore too much. But Avery from American Northwest, who I feel like we should have on here at some point. Dude is like, he's like Tacoma famous and like one of the most knowledgeable like spirits and wine people I've ever met.
Let's do it.
We totally should. But he did tequila tasting, and it was like one of the coolest things ever. And like I do these all the time, and like I have done them like as entertainment for people, and that's kind of what he was doing. He was being really cool about it. But like I've been doing this for 10 years, and I still get super stoked at like the goofy like marketing stories that like a salesperson tells me about, like these guys are from like a small farm and like the cartel tried to shut them down, but then they said like, no way, man. And then they started making their own tequila, and I'm just like, oh my God, tell me how much is that? I have $70 right now. I like am so dumb about it, and I don't know. I like felt goofy in like arenas with me.
Did you find a new favorite or anything like that? Or?
I found like some cool. So like he had a couple of things. They were agave varietals. I've never really like explored the difference between agave varietals. That was super cool.
Yeah.
So was it a particular line, or was it just a bunch of different ones?
Bunch
just
of
all
different
over the
stuff,
place?
mostly
Nice.
from his book, because of course. But he's similar to me. Like he's very picky about the stuff that he sells.
Yeah.
And he's good at selling it.
Cool.
That's where him and I differ.
Yeah.
But it was all really good.
Different
And,
agave varietals. I love that.
I know.
Yeah.
Some of them were super
Cool.
weird. Some of them were like smoky. Some were like really earthy. Some were like actually kind of funky, like almost like lactic-y kind of. It was. I don't know.
That's wild. I guess I didn't realize that there were varietals of agave. I thought it just was the plant. So
Anyway, welcome
course
to
there was-
Tequila Hour with the Good Green Podcast.
Get your tequila out.
we digress.
Talk about the Surgeon General.
I know. Yeah, dude. So we were like, we were pulling up like just random beer news stuff in general, dude. What's been going on?
Are we going to look at comments from those threads we were talking about?
Oh, we did. I kind of just went through a couple of the random ones anonymously that came up. I like decided against reading them specifically anonymously,
All right.
just
Fair
in
enough.
case. Not that I don't know. I don't know. No, nobody who's commenting on Vice articles listens to the Grit and Grain, but they might. I don't know. But like we went over the general consensus.
Yeah.
And I actually went back and read a couple, and like the overly hoppy IPA chunk of the industry ended up being like one of the most predominant comments that I saw. Yeah. Like everybody's just IPA'd out. But that's like a weird conundrum in this industry. Like if we're talking about like why there's a bunch of breweries closing and why the industry is like flattening out or whatever, it's weird to say like, well, there's just way too many IPAs, because that's still the thing that sells.
I'm not IPA'd out.
Me neither, man. Yeah, dude. Neither is
peanut gallery.
the room.
Well, maybe the core people are IPA or enjoy IPAs, but
Core people?
Core.
Oh,
core people.
I was like, fuck. You got to put too fine a point on it, Doug, but
How much are they
I'm not going to argue.
Pulling out of the Fred Meyer parking lot and handing out IPAs.
Right, the core
No.
beer drinkers are not the.
Doug's rinsing his mouth with Cantillon in the morning. Jesus.
He's living large.
Anyway, core people buying it.
But the more expansive, the rest of the public, general public, who might be attracted to it, might be getting turned off by IPAs. So,
Right.
Which I get. Okay, so this is like, and I've probably talked about this before. I generally feel like the portion of the public who maybe doesn't drink beer a whole lot, and there's like IPAs are terrible, and that's what turns me off of all beer. I am almost certain established that opinion during the IBU wars, when everybody was buying their IPAs on Safeway store shelves that were probably way out of code. And if I put like a super fresh Single Hill, Varietal, Old Schoolhouse, Lucky Envelope, Mirage, Wander, like really good contemporary producers of like hoppy beer. I mean, there's a million of them in Washington.
Yeah.
If I put that in front of you and didn't tell you what it was, you'd probably really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think putting a name to what you're tasting is super important, because like you can taste them, you can show somebody a beer and then be like, yeah, this has notes of cantaloupe and berries and some pine needles, and they're like, oh my gosh, it doesn't just taste like a whatever people call IPAs
Right.
that don't like IPAs.
Right.
Bitter.
Like it actually.
That's a
you're
separate
right.
thread.
It's
Bitter.
It's very fruity. It's
Yeah.
very flavorful. There's all these nuances to it, and yeah, it's just like, how do you not like them?
I know.
But yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think
Just don't call it an IPA.
Just call it a
what?
Pale
What?
ale?
What should we call it?
An extra pale
Extra
ale.
pale ale.
Yeah. It's a pale, but it's extra, just like you. Like that's your marketing right there.
Well, Logan, we were talking to Chris quite a bit. We were talking to Chris a lot about just naming. You know, he was talking. He said, "If I sell 40% more of this beer if I name it differently."
Yeah, totally.
You know, which I find just fascinating. The perception.
Yeah.
You know.
What Doug is saying is that all of you who are complaining about the beers that you don't like, it's your fault.
Thank you for the paraphrase.
That's legit. Like, oh, why is this called that? Why do we make that? How come there's so much of this? Because that's literally what the market is doing.
But people will just try one thing. So way back when, decades and decades ago, my first beer might have been, or my first craft beer might have been a super hoppy IPA or just something that just, and I was like, I'm never drinking that again because I didn't like it. And so then you think, oh, that's what craft beer is. That one thing is representation.
Or if they
of
think
all.
space dust represents everything.
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
Yeah, whatever it was. It was probably a Red Hook or something. I can't remember. It was a
That's a
long
big
time
Ballard.
ago.
Yeah.
It would have been a long time ago.
Totally.
Right. So I think that's often what happens is people will have just one thing, the only thing, and then associate that as everything under the huge umbrella that is craft beer. And
Sure.
it's just not.
Go get a flight, people. Get a flight.
Go. Try some
Every
things.
brewer just cringed. Brewers hate flights.
Bartenders
Sorry.
hate flights.
Bartenders hate
flights.
flights.
Bartenders hate pouring flights.
I am the
That's why I'm the
opposite.
producer, not
That's true.
not the host.
I think if we did a beer beef like episode with a brewer here, I mean Bethany's here. You're a line cleaner now. Yeah, I mean like a real.
Wow.
I feel like flights would come up probably.
But if you're proud of like the number of the things you brewed, wouldn't you want to lay that on people and go, hey, this is all the stuff I do?
Sure. The
Yeah?
argument
No?
that, the argument that I've seen brewers make a lot is like there's no. It's like you're looking at a painting through like a hole in a piece of paper. Like if you're just drinking 4 ounces of this thing that I made to drink 10 or 12 or 16 ounces of, you're just not getting the full picture.
Yeah. It's the quantity that
Which is for
what I
sure
hear.
That's interesting.
It might be the most pretentious thing that
I was going to say, I don't know that I'm buying that entirely.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying.
Don't tell artists how to art, Doug.
I won't. Heaven forbid.
I like flights. I order them, and yes, when I go to the breweries,
If
I
I've
order
been to a
them.
brewery that I've never been to, it's like, I want to see what you
they
got.
got. Exactly. And I can't drink a pint of all of them
You
because
must
we
drink
just talked
12
about
ounces.
that it's causing cancer, so I can't do that, right? I've got to do smaller quantities. I got to moderate. But
You know,
right?
Each one has a tiny label on it.
you know who does like a really like the happy medium here is actually what Kent Wetzler does.
Yeah.
When he goes to a new brewery he's never been to, he just orders a pint of one of everything.
Oh, wow.
He doesn't order a flight. He's just like, can I just have a glass of one of everything?
Oh, he does
Doesn't
do
matter
that.
how. I swear to God, he does do. He's a fucking
I
legend.
believe that. I love him.
half the time bartenders are like,
What?
what?
No,
and he's
can't
like,
do that.
I'm in the industry. Like I just, I drink beer all the time. I want to drink your guys' beer.
Mm-hmm.
Don't pour me a flight. I will just buy one of everything. And that's what he does.
And drinks 5 or 6 beers.
Yeah. It's the most gangster shit.
Yeah, it is.
He'll finish the ones he likes. He won't
then
finish the
won't.
other ones.
Oh, okay.
Well, and I'll do that with a flight too. If it's not, either I'll rank them like least favorite to best, and I'll finish off the least favorite first.
like-
and then,
Oh,
I'll
okay.
totally. I've got a method, right? Because
See, I grew up with the kids are starving in China thing, so I'm gonna.
that's what I was just getting ready to say. Because
gonna
you
drink 'em
don't-
all.
You don't leave beer on the table.
No.
It's kind of the thing, and
No.
so I'll drink the least favorite one, and then progress through it or whatever. But I also like pouring them for customers. I don't mind it.
That's fair.
Yeah, because I want them to be happy with whatever they want to drink, and if they want to try 4 or 5
Good for
different
you.
things,
I know.
I mean, that's just what I
A
do.
woman of the
That's,
people.
that's what favored. Right there.
She's like, "I
Let's
fucking
not
hate
get
you."
over. I get crazy here, but yeah. Anyway, so I don't mind doing them.
Yeah, man. That was, I don't know. That's all. I'm like,
What's next?
I'm
Matt?
trying to like think of like who, yeah. Actually, can I steal another pour of this beer before I pass it
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
you?
There's no,
This
yeah.
is really
Help
good.
yourself, please. Yeah, it's
Speaking
delicious.
of flights, Greer and I went to Headworks out in Enumclaw, and
Oh.
again had like 10 out of 10 great flight. Like
don't-
the beers were so good.
I don't think I've heard of Headworks.
Nobody has.
Okay, so I'm
It's not.
alone.
They're not out there. Like
So
they're
Here's
not.
a
Tell me about Headworks.
here's a core beer memory. These, okay. Here's a core
please.
beer memory. The first time I ever walked into Headworks, I met Lyra.
Oh,
That was where
that's
Lyra and I met.
cool.
Like
whoa.
7 or 8 years ago, probably. She was helping them out. She was beer tending, and I think I just ran in randomly to see if they wanted to buy like, guest tap ciders or whatever. But it was her behind the bar.
So what is Headworks? Are they a tap room? Are they a
a
bottle
brewery tap
shop?
room.
Are they all the things?
Self-distributing, but not.
Oh, they're in their brewery too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I've
It's
never.
like the brewery up there, right?
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Right
they've been
on.
around for a little while, for sure. But
Yeah, they're not new, and we've been there many times, but not recently, really. And it was just like
Everything was
we
good,
got a
though, huh?
flight, we got a couple of flights. I think we tasted everything, and it was like.
Do they distribute?
10 out of
Or-
10.
oh, okay. So it's just in their tap room
But
where you
it's
can
like
get
a
it.
decent.
Okay.
Their tap room
big.
kills it.
Is
It's
it?
Yeah, it's
huge
pretty
and
big.
it's like crowded every
It's
time we're
super
there.
nice.
I mean, their system isn't tiny. I
And
think
remind-
they're on
you
a
said where it
10
was again,
barrel,
I
maybe.
forget
Enumclaw.
already. Enumclaw, thank
Yeah.
you.
So
Okay.
anyway, shout out Headworks.
yeah, dude.
Nice.
I'm
Beer's
glad they're
great.
still cranking. Cole Street was up there too. They've closed. They've since closed. That was another really cool spot up there though too. Yeah. What else? We talked about. Okay, so this is actually news from a former guest and a future guest because we're going to have more shit to talk about with her. But Shauna Cormier has been very busy, both with the Washington Brewers Guild and the American Homebrewers Association. And it came out about a week ago that they have filed for their 501c3 to operate as an independent entity, separate from the Brewers Association.
So who are they? Who is the who is filed?
So the American Homebrewers Association.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah. Not Washington Brewers Guild.
That's what I
But
was
she does
trying to-
both.
Right, and I was trying to figure out which organization we were talking about. Okay,
She's
got
a
it.
busy motherfucker.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she's a beast. And I'm excited to talk to her again because it sounds like 2025 is going to be an extra busy year for her. But so her and Julia Hers put a letter out. And you guys might remember we talked about Julia Hers when we had Dustin on from Brown's Point Homebrew Club, I think with Tristan that day. Right after her, like what I would say pretty disastrous podcast appearance regarding their National Homebrew Con, kerfuffles.
Changing, yeah.
But it sounds like a lot of the issues that the AHA might have had could have come from the inability to be flexible while they were part of the Brewers Association as like an umbrella organization. So with Shauna, Julia, and a group of board members kind of at the helm, and maybe not really needing to abide by like the logistics and operations that come from being like a segment of the Brewers Association, they can probably do more for their members. They can probably gain more resources, especially as their own 501c3, and not rely on things like allocated funds from an umbrella 501c3. They'll be their own nonprofit. They can write their own grants and things like that. So there's, in their letter, they kind of go into detail about it, but that's actually that's kind of a big deal, actually. And I'm proud of Shauna. She's fucking awesome. And I love the fact that she's from here representing homebrewers like that. We've talked kind of at length about like the issues that the American Homebrewers Association has had, and it sounds like this is probably the biggest and best step they probably could have taken to fix some of that stuff. They posted some statistics about like their membership numbers. They're at about half the members they were now than they had in 2019.
Oh, wow.
So like
Okay.
membership is declining.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I'm sure we could all imagine a situation where like you're a big organization, but you still have to answer to another bigger organization who maybe doesn't totally prioritize you the way that you might need. And it sounds like they're really trying to fix that.
And wasn't it that they combined, or they canceled their conference or whatever, and they decided to
Combined
tag
it
on
with
to
GABF.
excuse me, GABF. How did that go? Does anybody know? Have
Well-
we heard? Or I mean, I don't. Maybe we talked about it and I don't remember. Or
David came on after David from Rim Family, but he didn't check out the homebrewer spot. And the thing was, I think you needed to be a member to actually go check that spot out. So
that's
it wasn't
right.
super
It was
friendly to people who didn't already have their fucking
right.
badge.
That was one of the complaints
Yep.
was that you can only get in as if you're a member. And
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
Hey, if you want people to be
it
into this-
worked.
Right.
Yeah.
Then
Trying to draw new people in. Yeah.
So with this is going to come tons of different efforts to like increase their membership numbers.
Of course, yeah.
It's not an understatement to say that like the craft beer world that we have now, which is insanely dense with like high quality choices all the fucking time, was probably primarily built by people who were members of the AHA. Like so many good brewers were AHA members, or still are. And then maybe they went to Siebel, maybe they went to UC Davis, they started their own brewery, they connected with other brewers in their community, and then now we have this. And so like it's an important organization and it's done a ton. And I feel like maybe they've fallen off over the years and had these other kind of issues, maybe some of which are now just out of their control, but will be back in their control. But that's a big piece of news. Very proud of Shauna. So if you're
really
listening
cool.
to this,
She's awesome.
Yeah, you're awesome. Come back and tell us what you're doing.
Yes. Come back, please.
And this was like a random one. This just happened a couple days ago. But separate beer news is that, and you guys might have seen this too, but Sound Beverage up in Bellingham is being absorbed by AB1, which is Anheuser-Busch. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
The groans. The groans.
Yeah, I know. So here, let me pull this
the
up.
audience.
Yeah. What does this mean for
Let me pull this up.
breweries?
So Sound Beverage was a Bellingham-based craft beer distributor. Whoops. Let me find this. And they had a pretty long list of brands, some of which I work with myself. It sounds like it is up to the brands to decide whether or not they're going to continue working with Sound now that it's an AB subsidiary, or with AB directly if that's how they're going to do it. So they get to choose to leave. But the difficult thing about that is that's a really tough choice to make, because if you're a small brewery, it's getting more and more difficult to be very discerning about who you work with and how, because you just can't afford to do that. There is very limited shelf space. There are limited consumers now. It's very competitive. And if you're like, I don't want anybody to see me working with AB1 because I don't want to be connected to Anheuser-Busch in this way, I'm going to go with some of these other small distributor options. If those small distributor options, for instance, don't have access to the small independent retail shelves that Sound did, maybe you lose those shelf placements when you sign on with a new distributor instead of going with AB1. And then you're competing with previous year's revenue where you got to sell through, Whole Foods or something, and now you don't get to do that anymore. But you could do it if you stayed on with AB. It's probably a better business decision.
So is it gonna stay as Sound, doing business as Sound, but just owned as a parent as AB, or will?
I can't tell yet.
Okay.
It sounds like they've just been purchased.
Okay.
But so AB1 is its own distributor. So Olympic Eagle is very similar down here. California Eagle, there's a lot of like Eagle distributors, which are all essentially like Anheuser-Busch
And
houses.
so AB1 is what it's called up north?
AB1 is
Got it, okay.
And they've been, AB1 kind of infamously was implicated. It's a few years ago now, but like lots of pay-to-play stuff. Paying people, giving out coolers for certain numbers of handles or businesses, or these guys installed our tap system, and they're not the only ones that do that, certainly, but they were the ones who were certainly implicated in it. I think there was even a class action against AB for this, and like a lot of the Eagle distributors got named in that class action.
Yikes. So that means, for the smaller breweries that can't afford to say, hey, we'll give you a trip to Hawaii if you sell all of our beer, you're really kind of screwed.
You could be.
Or if you're, hopefully that's not going on as much now. But
this is tough. This consolidation like this is not good for the industry. I work for a small distributor, and we take brands from other small distributors, and brands get taken from us. It's just how it goes. Like if you're a small brewery and you're trying to grow and you have goals of being on every single store shelf, then getting to the point where, like we just talked about this with Great Notion, like getting to the point where you are attractive to a really big distributor is an important step, but you need building blocks to get there. And so that's where small distributors kind of fit. And if you want an industry where there is potential to grow your business to that point, you can't do it without people like Sound. You can't do it without Orcas. You can't do it without XBP, who we had on. Like that's a brand new, they're extra punk rock small distributor bringing crazy, awesome, high quality beer in. If those breweries have goals to grow and eventually be on all those store shelves, they're not even going to be on the radar of somebody like AB1 or Columbia or whatever, but you could be eventually. Right. So it's like having small distributors like that is good for the health of the industry for sure. But when this happens, it's, it feels gross. And I was reading through the comments of
Comments.
Yeah. How come, so one of the comments was, how is this possible with the 3-tiered system? So this gets brought up a lot when you hear about, so Shelton Brothers was another kind of commentary on the 3-tiered system. They had sort of primary distributors that really only just sold their stuff, and oftentimes they might be owned by Shelton. But AB, how can you be a producer of beer and then also be a distributor? And that's a weird kind of loophole in this. And so for anybody listening, if you're not familiar, the 3-tiered system in America is you have people you have producers on the supplier level. So this is people who produce beer, but also importers, people who bring beer into America from other countries, also are on the producer level. And then you have the wholesaler level, which is where I'm at, where Lee and the XVP guys are, all of your distributors, Sound, AB, River Barrel, right. And then you have retailer level. And so in general, alcohol has to hit each tier in order to actually make it to the public. But there are workarounds. So if you're a producer who has a tap room and you can sell product to go, so you're working around the middle of that. Yep. So there's definitely loopholes. But in this case, AB1 is a totally separate entity from AB InBev, Anheuser-Busch. So they're not a producer. You can still be called Anheuser-Busch if you don't have, if you're not owned specifically by that.
That particular business model is not producing anything. Right. They're just distributing it.
So it doesn't really violate that. But if you have questions about that, that's kind of the answer. Is these are two separate entities. One is a supplier and one is a wholesaler. If AB started opening up, if AB started opening up tap rooms, then people might start to wonder.
But could they, if they were separate entities, or no, they couldn't do that?
No. Will the breweries that that are with Sound now be expected to produce a bunch more? Could it be good for them? No, it's not going to be hey, all of a sudden you're in chain stores that you weren't in.
So that'd be really tough.
Yeah. It's
entirely possible that they could do that, but it would be tough, to for a brewery to like suddenly turn over and start making a ton of new stuff to get into all these new chain placements.
Right.
But it's totally possible if AB1 goes in and flexes and says, hey, we want, 4 feet of this shelf for all of our new brands that we just picked up. It's possible that the brands that stay with them benefit from something like that. But it's a big trade-off because you'll still be a part of AB's book in that way.
Right.
And that's not to say that like, we've talked about this before, but like 10 Barrel is a good example of a really, I think, a fantastic brewery that does like get shit on pretty hard because they're just part of AB's portfolio. They're Tilray now, I believe. And actually, I would say that they're more deserving to get shit on now because they let go of Tanya Cornett since Tilray purchased them. The entire time that 10 Barrel was with AB, she was there still doing R&D, and they were still winning tons of awards. So, yeah, I have a bit more of an issue with them now than I did then because I think Tanya is one of the most fucking insanely influential beer producers on the planet, and like she was allowed to do that work while they were with AB.
Right.
And then the second that the weed guys took over, they were like,
The weed guys.
yeah, we don't get what you're doing here.
The weed guys.
So yeah, that's kind of funky, like local news. It's happening all over. And actually, when I was talking to Ron about this, it's funny because we just talked about, speaking of the Tilray thing, how this almost feels like a bit of a 180. Right, like AB is getting rid of a ton of their craft brands, but then their distribution subsidiaries are picking up small craft.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to figure out where the money is, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's it. As opposed to the brewery side, it's the distribution side, and maybe that's what they're thinking. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully whatever happens, the breweries end up where they want to be in a situation that's right for them.
Yeah,
and that's
for sure.
like, it's getting harder and harder to make those decisions.
Yeah.
I was as I was like scrolling through comments, a post came up just today about, it was like an anonymous post in like a beer nerd group about why small self-distributed breweries charge keg deposits when they distribute their beers to places. Like, why don't you just sell kegs to businesses that you trust, like that you would trust to partner with? So you shouldn't. The point was, you shouldn't need to charge a keg deposit, because if you just trust me, I'll get your keg back to you. And that's like, I can see what you're trying to like get at there.
Yeah.
But the reality is that like, none of us can afford to be that discerning about how we do business and who we do business with. Like, straight up. Like, you guys are both bartenders. You both like service accounts. You're not asking a customer who they voted for when they order a beer from you. All you care about is that they're giving you money. And you're just going to do your best. Yeah, dude.
Also, a lot of hands touch that keg. I mean, there's not like, you can't really be like, oh yeah, I'm going to get that keg back because I trust the owner. It's like, you never know what is going to really happen.
So many things can happen between
the best response to this thread was a screen cap taken of the Facebook Marketplace where somebody was listing a bunch of keg shells for sale. And
for
this
what?
is why.
You can barely scrap them, but okay.
I know.
Good luck.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. I don't think we have any fuck up stories. I'm sure I made some in the past, week or so. I fucked up a lot today. I just told.
Go on.
I didn't fuck up a lot today. I just had a weird day. No, I just had a weird day. My company had a weird day.
Oh.
But it's fine.
Yeah,
We're not getting bought by AB. So it could be worse.
That'd be a fucking story.
I know that'll be a rough podcast. So I'm out of a job. So we're doing this full time, guys.
Yeah. Okay. Well, quick question though.
Yes.
Have you heard anything about the whole alcohol limit going from 0.08 to 0.05?
No, actually.
It's blood alcohol, BHC, right?
Is
Is that what it is?
Blood alcohol, BAC.
BAC, yeah.
That was on the table a while back.
I felt like
we talked about it before.
Yeah,
actually.
and I thought I heard that it was maybe making a resurgent, but I don't know that.
I
it
thought
was
somebody in the industry was it Kendall? Somebody was going and like fighting it, being like, "This is just going to hurt businesses and restaurants, and not do what you think it's going to do."
New about that, or if that was still.
I know Ray from Lucky Envelope was like on his radar early, and he's been like fighting that too. But I'll try to get an update, and I'll let you guys know on the next one. Ron's not here, so we don't have an awesome outro. I'm very sorry, but please follow us: Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. I'm on Instagram and on YouTube. Yeah,
good
and
time
if you
to
haven't
visit
yet,
Tacoma.
like share it and tag your friends and let people know that we're out here just trying to give you guys the best beer news and teach you guys something as much as we can help it through all this bullshit. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. Stick around for the next one. We're actually ramping up for Tacoma Beer Week stuff here pretty soon. That's why we took a week off.
Beer Week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as too much barley wine.
you go.
That's
and
right.
there's no bad time to visit Tacoma.
That's it. Alter your expectations.
And alter your expectations.
Yada
yeah.
yada.
Something
Anyway.
random.
We'll see you guys next time. Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us at Grit and Grain Podcast wherever you get your social media and catch new episodes every Friday. Cheers.
Channel 253 is member supported. I'm producer Doug Mackey, and I hope you will show your support by going to channel253.com/membership and join. Thank you. Grit and Grain is part of the Channel 253 podcast network. Check out our other shows: Nerd Farmer, Move to Tacoma, Interchangeable White Ladies, What Say You, Citizen Tacoma, and Kitchen 253.
This is Channel 253.
Get up.